Rafael Edward Cruz, also known as
Lyin Ted, Lyin Ted. What's your name? My name's Lyin Ted Cruz.
Is the junior senator from the Lone Star State. Other than having the most punchable face known to man, Ted is famously one of the most hated people in Congress, and not just by the other party.
If you killed Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate, and the trial was in the Senate, nobody can convict you.
Jesus Christ, great.
For this list, All Things Top 5 ranks the top 5 reasons why people hate Ted Cruz. Legend has it that if you say his name, the devil himself will drag you down to hell.
And the next president of the United States, Ted Cruz.
Number 5. Don't tickle that pickle. In 2007, this sexually repressed ventriloquist dummy was the Solicitor General for Texas. Ted was part of the legal team that helped defend a law that prohibited the advertisement and sale of mushroom missiles, artificial tuna tacos, and other obscene devices, but did not forbid the private use of such devices. In other words, Texans were free to use such toys at home, but they did not have the right to buy them. Anyone in possession of a 6-pack or more of plastic pleasure pickles was considered to be promoting them.
I'm Pickle Rick!
The brief compared the use of adult toys to hiring a willing prostitute or engaging in consensual bigamy, and it equated advertising these products with the commercial promotion of prostitution. In perhaps the most noticeable line of the brief, Cruz's office declared, "There is no substantive due process right to stimulate one's genital for non-medical purposes unrelated to procreation or outside of interpersonal relationship." Luckily for Ted's wife Heidi, the Court of Appeals told Ted to piss off. Otherwise, Mrs. Cruz could be serving some jail time for marrying the biggest dildo of them all. Number 4. Humble brag. Ted is so humble that he's not afraid to let people know that he is as humble or more humble than anybody out there. If you think you're humbler than Ted, then you are just wrong. Ted sat with ABC News to tell the world what gives him humility.
You argued a case before the Supreme Court at age 32.
It's an extraordinary opportunity to stand before the U.S. Supreme Court. It takes your breath away. And we didn't have a prayer. We were not going to win that case, and I stood up, and for 30 minutes, there was not a single friendly question. I have always liked the fact that I sit in my office, and I look at a giant painting of me getting my tail whipped 9-0. And it is very good for instilling humility.
Nothing says humble than a giant painting of himself looking up at the heavens with a slight angelic halo around his head. Or is it all the people in this painting of him that are painting even more paintings of him? He's so modest that he didn't even mention what noble cause he lost that day. This hero of humility argued that Texas should be allowed to back out of a legal settlement in which it vowed to improve healthcare services for poor children.
Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas.
What's the difference?
We all remember Jesus saying, "Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deed." Unless you need a giant painting of yourself, then suck it, poor people. Nothing says I'm a down-to-earth man of the people like hanging an oil portrait in your office like you're some sort of 16th century nobility.
What does he think he is?
I'm your king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
Number 3, that's not wrestling. What started out as a weird Twitter feud between Hellboy actor Ron Perlman and Senator as seen on To Catch a Predator, Matt Gaetz, about the U.S. soccer team not standing for the national anthem quickly escalated. This feud went back and forth until Perlman decided to bring representative and failed college wrestling shower monitor Jim Jordan into the fray. Perlman tweeted to Gaetz, "You're lucky for this guy, Matt. If it weren't for him, you'd be the ugliest politician walking." This is the point where Ted decided to jump into the fight and defend Jim Jordan's honor by challenging Perlman to a wrestling match, not against him, but against Jim Jordan. Ted bet $10,000 to a non-political charity that Perlman couldn't last 5 minutes in the wrestling ring against Jordan. Getting tired of Ted challenging someone else to fight his fights for him, Perlman offered $50,000 to have Ted fight him himself. Ted accused Perlman of being too scared to wrestle Jordan and needing to get a manicure. Leave it to Ted to be a cuck by offering up another man to fight another man's fight.
Look! This is wrestling, this!
By the way, I don't apologize for thoughts or prayers. I will lift up in prayer people...
Mister, you better take your walk right out of this bar.
Speaking of being a cuck, number 2, the cuckolding. During the 2016 presidential primary, this Canadian syrup guzzler got a mouthful by Trump. Trump has called Ted nasty,
Nasty guy. Now I know why he doesn't have one endorsement.
Accused his father of helping to assassinate JFK.
All I did is point out the fact that on the cover of the National Enquirer, there was a picture of him and crazy Lee Harvey Oswald having breakfast.
And repeatedly attacked his wife by implying she was physically ugly and hiding a scandal. Initially, Ted showed a hint of a spine and refused to endorse Trump as the Republican presidential nominee for maligning his father and his wife.
So last night, Donald threatened my wife. He went directly after my wife. And if Donald wants to get in a character fight...
Do you want a character to debate Bob?
He's better off sticking with me.
You better stick with me.
Because Heidi is way out of his league.
Because Sidney Ellen Wade is way out of your league.
5 minutes later.
In a lengthy 700-word post on Facebook, Ted said, "After many months of careful consideration, of prayer and searching my own conscience, I have decided that on Election Day, I will vote for the Republican nominee, Donald Trump." The entire statement could be boiled down to this: my fellow Americans, I, Ted Cruz, have been cucked. What's worse than being a cuck? Being a beta cuck.
I was calling to encourage you to come out and vote on Election Day.
What a puss.
You made it this far into the video, you might as well hit subscribe and ring the bell to be notified for our latest videos. Number 1. Lyin Ted. As Texas turned into human popsicles during the coldest winter in the state's history, Ted got on a flight to tropical Cancun. It usually takes a person a few days to do something regrettable while in Cancun, but for Ted, it took just 10 hours. From the time his United flight touched down at Cancun on Wednesday to a 6 a.m. scramble the next day to book a return flight back to Houston. Ted knew he made a horrible mistake and started having second thoughts around the time when people started posting pics of him on Twitter fleeing his constituents.
There he is, seat 3F.
Ted tried to explain the vacation without regrets and left the impression that it was always a one-day trip for him, even though he had a carry-on bag the size of Texas. When that failed, he tried the blame the kid strategy while masquerading as Father of the Year defense. And when that failed, he finally acknowledged his error and took some responsibility while leaving his children still firmly under the bus.
People of Springfield, because of the epidemic, I have canceled my vacation to the Bahamas. I shall not leave the city. Hey, you! Get that steel drum out of the mayor's office.
Sorry, man.
It turns out that Ted does understand why people cross the border to escape inhospitable living conditions after all.
P.S. Ted Cruz, go f*** yourself.
Do you agree or disagree with our list? Are there more reasons for wanting to punch Ted Cruz in the face? Comment below and watch our other videos, and subscribe to All Things Top 5.